Hello, my name is Beth Lopes. I'm the adapter and director of Romeo and Juliet: Hard Way Home. Yeah, this version of Romeo and Juliet is very much inspired by the album that we're using in the show. Bear Creek is the name of the album by Brandi Carlile. It came out in 2012. And so the music has really inspired these feelings for me of it's a dusty, hot, kind of oppressive locale. And there's this train whistle that starts Hard Way Home. At least that's what it always is in my brain. And I imagined this train that kind of just goes right past this town. This town doesn't even have a train stop. And so that's the kind of place I was thinking for this Romeo and Juliet. There's a long horizon, fields for days. And so in a way, the expanse, the extra space in a way is oppressive because they can see the horizon, they just can't quite get to it. And that sense of yearning and longing just really makes sense for me for the world of Romeo and Juliet. You know, I hate to admit it, but I don't actually know the exact time or place that this idea came about. I think somewhere in 2012, 2013, after this album came out, I was driving in my car listening to a lot, and there's something about when you're in the car and you see the scenery just rolling by, and I was just listening to it on repeat, and there was something about the track Hard Way Home in particular that really fused in my mind with Romeo and Juliet. I can't remember the moment it happened, but I think it's surrounding the lyric, I sometimes lose my faith in luck, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And I just kept thinking about the characters of Romeo and Juliet and that they never get the chance. You know, and they're in this moment where they don't know what they want to be, but they never get the chance to even try, even to find out. And that's where it started. And then the more I listened to the album, the more other pieces of music started to tie to other spots of the play, and it just kind of snowballed to the point where I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was thinking about it all the time. I was playing the album all the time. So it was this idea that just was kind of lodged in my brain, but it definitely started with Hard Way Home. So then when we were discussing the title for the piece, that just felt like a really natural kind of subtitle to Romeo and Juliet, of that song, and the sentiment of it felt so perfect in tandem with Romeo and Juliet. Yeah, so I'm, as you might imagine, a huge Shakespeare nerd, and I've done a lot of Shakespeare in my directing career. And this project kind of seems like the natural conclusion of the work that I've done with Shakespeare up until this point. I feel like I'm always finding ways to bring in music, to bring in movement, to, for lack of a better word, adapt it to a more modern context. And so this project, fully going into musicalizing Shakespeare in a way, felt like an inevitable conclusion of a lot of the work that I had been doing. That being said, it's a really different approach than other Shakespeare plays I've worked on. It has to be. So for instance, the first week we spent just learning music. And that was something that's new for me because I don't do a lot of musicals. So that was something like, okay, we really have to spend time learning the music, and especially when we're using music that hasn't been already crafted for the stage. So luckily, we have an incredible musical director, Kyle, who took the music on the album and made it into something that we can sing with a chorus of people or is specific for this moment. And so all of that adaptation has been happening kind of before and during the process. So it has to be a different approach. So the other thing that's been really different is I'm somebody who usually really likes to kind of get in the room and feel out with the actors their impulses and really stage off of that. And I love working with people who are creators and things are happening, and then I get to edit. And something about this process was I wanted to move a lot quicker than that because I wanted to see a big picture sooner. Because it's new, we really wanted to see from start to end what is the general shape of this, so that we could see, okay, this needs to go here and this needs to be bumped up a little bit. I think we should use this piece of music here. And a lot of exciting things have come from getting it up on its feet really quickly. And so there have been, whole pieces of music that have been put into scenes that I didn't originally imagine them there, just from the ideas of, our music director, our choreographer, the actors in the room. And it's been really thrilling and also huge. It's a huge, huge project. The immensity of what we're trying to do with this project has been really rewarding and also really challenging, because we have all of the normal challenges that exist in Romeo and Juliet. You have people playing these iconic characters with a lot of text that people know by heart, and the text is Shakespeare. It's heightened, it's rich, it's poetic, and we have all these fight sequences, and there's all these things that are normally quite hard about doing Romeo and Juliet, and then you add in all of this music and choreography, and it's a huge challenge. And we've really asked a lot of the team, actors, designers, everybody, and it's been really exciting to see people step up to the plate and be really game to just go for it. But we've been working really hard. I mean, we've been using every single minute of rehearsal. I would say one of the hardest things to modernize is the violence that exists in the play. The feud feels super real to me. And that I think that we're living in a time, especially right now, that things feel so this side and this side. And I grew up on this side, so this is the side I believe in. And so that really makes a lot of sense to me right now. The violence is the thing that's a little bit hard to translate into modern times. I didn't want anyone to have guns. I wanted to keep the text of them having swords. So something that what we ended up doing was using knives instead of full swords, and so we're keeping the language, but that we have blades, and they're different kinds, but it feels like something that someone could have on them, and that they have it either concealed or they're wearing it proudly, kind of depending on the character. But so that was something that was definitely different than if you saw a production of this that was set in the traditional time period. So when we were working with our fight choreographer, Ezra, immediately right off the bat, I was like, so this is going to be more brawling than fencing, which was another thing that felt really right to me, to this modern context, and also focusing on the youth element of the play, because I think that they all have this anger inside of them and this frustration of their current situation, of whatever their hopes and dreams are that they can't, not only that they can't get to, but they don't even feel like they can see a mechanism in which they could possibly get to them at some point. And there's so much anger and frustration in that, and they're taking it out on each other because they have this excuse of this feud. But that being said, I don't think that, maybe besides Tybalt, I don't think that they necessarily actually want to fight each other. And so something you'll see in our first scene is they have the impulse, they have the talk, they have the biting of the thumb, and then when it gets to the fighting, it's like there's a real terror in it, because all of a sudden this is real. You're touching someone else's body, it's real. And I think that's another area that we can really show their youth, is that they're scared, as a sane person would be if they got in a knife fight, that they're scared. And that characters like Tybalt and Mercutio, when you see them fight later, it's a little different, because their characters are so unhappy that in a way the fighting is what makes them feel alive. I think the thing that's really special about our production that is exemplified by having the music there is the voice of these young people, and particularly adding Mercutio and Tybalt to that core group. It's not just Romeo and Juliet in our production, it's the four of them, because all four of them are the casualties of this feud, and they're all young people. They all have hopes and dreams, and with the music, we've been able to give them a voice, in the sense of we've been able to give them a singing voice, and that being a way to really shine a light on the fact that these young people don't feel like they can talk to anyone or talk to their families. I mean, clearly we have the nurse and the friar, but they can't talk to their parents, and they don't feel like anything that they say will make the world different. And so that's something that I really wanted to hit home with this production, is I'd love that audience leaving feeling like, oh, not just, oh, what a tragedy, oh, we need to make, inspire love and not hate, but that how do we create a world in which our young people feel like they have a voice and that people are listening and that they can speak freely and love freely and be freely? And how do we create that world? Because I hope things are getting better, but I think that we still dismiss young opinions so frequently because we think we know better because we have the years under our belt. And I think that they might know something because they don't, because they can see the world in a fresher way with fresher eyes. Brandi Carlile as an artist is so inspirational in so many different ways. And what I love specifically about her music is it's so honest. It feels like she's utterly herself in her music and that she's not hiding anything. And when you hear how she sings too, it just feels like she's incapable of hiding anything. It's so raw, it's so emotional. And I had the great good fortune to see her in concert recently. And the stuff that she was saying in between her songs too was so honest and generous too. And she has this group, the Highwomen, that just released an album that are all about changing the face of country music and really making room for women in that industry. And it comes from a place of toughness, but also a place of real love. And that's what I love about her, is that she just seems to be so generous with people who have different opinions than her, while also speaking her truth and not pretending to be anything other than what she is. I also feel really fortunate in that I discovered her music. A friend of mine gave me her first album when I think it was like 2007 or something, and I listened to it and I was like, oh my God, she sings how I feel. And I can't remember, I was 20 something at the time, and as I've gotten older, her music has evolved as well, because I think we're roughly around the same age. And so it's been so interesting to be able to have this artist that in a way has kind of grown up with me or grown into this different kind of life. And she has this song on her most recent album, The Mother, that at her concert she talked about, writing this song as kind of an affirmation to herself of when you're feeling like you're not enough or you're not worthy of that title. And it blows my mind that that 24-year-old listening to her music, and now I sing that song to my 14-month-old daughter, and it's just wild. So I'm such a huge fan of her and the band from an artistic point of view and also a personal point of view. What has been so thrilling about doing this show with Cal Rep, first of all, I'm just so grateful to Jeff, the artistic director, for him going out on a limb with this crazy idea. And he said, pitch me something. And I was like, what about this? And he was like, let's do it. Let's get in touch with Brandi's people and let's do it. So that was really exciting for me to have a chance to experiment and figure out what this piece is. And then starting to work on it, it's been such a joy seeing how the piece has shifted and changed because of the specific team that we have. So working with the designers, some elements of the world or how things would move in the world have changed because of the ideas from that team. And likewise, because of some of our casting decisions and the pool of people that we had, there are now things in the show that in my mind are now vital and I will not ever change because of the talents of the specific people that we had. So that has just been so fun to experiment with that process. And also I hope it's been fun for the students involved, that no matter what happens in the future of this show, I hope the show has a future, that there are things that exist in the piece only because they were there. And I think that that's really a thrilling thing.